Wisconsin Eye's coverage of Campaign 2014 is being brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice supporting Wisconsin hospitals in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye coverage of the 2014 elections continues with an interview with Karen Mueller of Chippewa Falls. She's a Republican running in the 3rd Congressional District. Just one note, Wisconsin Eye thanks the Wisconsin Hospital Association for helping make these interviews possible. Karen, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Give us the short version of your bio and qualifications, please.
Okay. I am a civil rights attorney. I returned to Wisconsin 10 years ago. I spent a number of years away. I was born in La Crosse, and all of my family has been here. My grandparents were on dairy farms in southern Trempealeau County, and so I always came back to the area very frequently, and I loved it. It's some of my most treasured memories growing up was to be able to come and visit my grandparents' farm. And my undergraduate degree is in finance with a minor in accounting. Years ago I went through nurses training, didn't get a diploma. I stopped in the middle of that training to go out and be with my husband. He was in the Army out in Fort Lewis, Washington. So that kind of interrupted it and I never got back. I was a stay-at-home mom for years and went to law school later in life.
That's fascinating.
So I graduated in 2001 and I came down here to Wisconsin and took the bar.
Have you run for anything before? Do you hold any local office, ma'am?
No.
You don't?
No.
Then what got you involved to run for in the 3rd Congressional District this cycle?
Well, it's, I think, been a growing I've been becoming more and more disturbed, more and more frustrated at what I've seen going on in Washington. I see a situation where I think spending is out of control. I think the size of the government is out of control for my taste, and I think we have to do something about it. And I just decided that some of the issues that were of concern to me, I wasn't hearing enough discussion regarding the different situations or the different steps that I would take, and so I did I did decide to throw my hat in the ring.
Well, on your website, one of the first things you say, Karen will fight to restore freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, and freedom of the press to our country. Could you just elaborate on those themes, ma'am? Well,
I think there's a growing movement to curtail individuals' speech. I think an example of that would be the IRS probe of both press and also individuals, the conservative parties, such as the Tea Party, when they were trying to form organizations and then they found themselves being targeted. I think that's one aspect. I'm seeing more and more just being out in the public square. It seems like there are movements to curtail freedom of speech, and I think that's very important. Part of my practice as a civil rights attorney has been with freedom of religion, and I see different examples of that all over the state. My practice has been part of that, where people are targeted, they're harassed, and in some cases they've been fired simply for making simple expressions of their faith. And I think that's very disturbing that we have a situation like that. I'm entitled to my opinion, you're entitled to your opinion in your belief, and that's the way the founders wanted it. And so this movement to suppress beliefs or to say you can't say that or you can't believe that because it might offend me, I have an issue with that. That is not what the founders intended with the First Amendment.
And that movement comes from Washington, which is why you're running for Congress. Okay. Questions on some specific issues. Let's start where the money is. Medicare and Social Security are going to go bankrupt eventually. Ideas on how to fix those, ma'am?
Obviously a big problem, and that will be something where we are certainly going to have to work together, and we need to be able to make hard decisions possibly some cuts. It looks to me, from the research that I've done, that in as early as 2016, we are going to be in major problems, and if we don't do something by then, we are going to have a 20% automatic cut. So we need to start looking at what we can do now, and some of those ideas would be smaller cuts right now, but obviously you've got a spending problem and you've got a lack of income problem, so we have to look at both of those and see what we can do. We may have to look at small increases in the amount of money that is going to be coming in to those programs to be able to support them. Hopefully that would be in the short run, but in the long run we have to find some real hard we have to make some real hard decisions as how we can make them sustainable over the long run. And I think part of that is going to go right back to lowering health care costs. And the Affordable Health Care Act hasn't done what it was billed as doing, which was to lower health care costs and also to lower health care insurance costs. And so we have to go back and we have to deal with Obamacare. Obviously, we've got an impending problem with Social Security and Medicare, but at the same time, we have to look at the big picture. And that is a major problem here with our health care costs.
And you would go to Washington to repeal the Affordable Care Act?
Yes.
And you say on your website that a better system would be health savings accounts?
I think that's one way that we can do it. My husband and myself, we have a health care savings account. It's not a Cadillac policy. It has deductibles. It has co-pays. But you learn personal responsibility by doing that. And I think that is going to be the answer to our health care costs. When you have everybody having an investment, a reasonable amount that they have to pay, then you have people being more responsible about when they go to the doctor. And so I think over the long run, I mean, that's a market mechanism, very basic, but it works. You know that it works from your own personal experience. When you get something entirely free, you tend to use more of it. And when it costs you something, even 10% or 20% of it, then you tend to use a little bit more discretion regarding how and when you use that service or product.
Immigration is in the news as recently as yesterday, played a role in the defeat of the House Majority Leader. What do you think about those who are in this country illegally? Should there be a path to citizenship, ma'am?
It's a very complex issue. I think there could be, but we have to close the borders. I would not be in favor of any type of amnesty program until the borders are secured. We have to do that. Our citizenship as Americans, it means something, and right now it doesn't mean something when we have porous borders. So we close, we reallocate other resources, we bring them down to the border, we close the borders, and we start enforcing the laws we have. Then I would say we can look at who is here. First of all, they have already broken laws of the United States of America. And so if we're going to look at amnesty, we have to first go, okay, if we are going to give them a pass on breaking that law, then I think we need to set the standard very high from there. If they've broken any other law, they have to be deported. I believe they have to be. Otherwise, all of our laws mean nothing. Once we've done that, we have a group of potential citizens. They have to go to the end of the line. They have to go to the end of the line because there are plenty of legal immigrants that have come here, that have done their time. They have paid money to come. They have paid for attorneys in certain cases, and we need to honor the fact that they came here legally. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, I would say we have to have a system where we have immigrants that come here for the reason to assimilate, to be part of the American dream. And because of that, we need to, I think, have people that are willing to learn our language. That doesn't mean that they have to forget their culture, but it does mean that they have to be able to assimilate, to uphold our laws, and to be law-abiding citizens.
What about this rush of children from Guatemala, Honduras that are showing up now, crossing the borders. Some of them are as young as 6 and 4. Do you deport children back to the gangs and crime neighborhoods in those South American countries, ma'am?
Well, I think that's going to be a really tough issue, isn't it? First of all, we have to look at how did they get here, and they're getting here because our borders are porous. So again, we have to close those borders, and we have to begin to take steps to do that. In terms of the children, that's a very tough issue. I have already heard that there are situations where they are possibly being abused. We have to have a zero tolerance for that. So we are going to have to quickly develop a situation where if they don't have parents, if they don't want them back, then we have to be able to find a way to put them up for adoption. I don't think it's going to be acceptable to have them in some type of just large facility for very long.
Okay.
I don't think as Americans that we should be doing that. Having said that, there is a number of different things with that I think we have to look at, where we have parents coming to this country, having children who become United States citizens, and then we're looking at that situation. And in that particular case, I'm very much in favor of parental rights, and I do think that we need to deport the parents, and I think it's going to be up to the parents to decide, are they going to leave their children behind, put them up for adoption here, or are they going to take them back to the country that they came from? That doesn't mean that we take away the child's United States citizenship. We give it back to the parents to decide.
Okay. Recent developments, Judge Crabb's ruling saying that the constitutional prohibition against same-sex marriages in Wisconsin is unconstitutional. Your reaction to that, ma'am?
Again, for a federal candidate like me, I'm very much in favor of states' rights. And because of that, I think it is a state issue to determine that. And basically, the citizens of Wisconsin had already decided that issue. Obviously, Judge Crabb has determined, made her ruling based on federal law. And so we certainly have to respect that. In terms of whether or not that's going to be appealed, I haven't followed that, so I don't, maybe you can tell. I'm not sure if that is going to be.
It's the intent of the Attorney General that it be appealed.
Yeah.
So your hope is that the Supreme Court, when it eventually picks one of these state cases to rule on, would give each state the right to determine their policy on same-sex marriage?
Well, I think that makes sense with a number of issues. I think that the federal government, that there's a number of different issues that should be left to the state. I am in favor of a situation where we have more state competition, and that would fall into that area. So.
Also on your website, a key point is your Second Amendment rights.
Yes.
You say you back open carry.
Yes.
Can you explain that concept as you're backing it, ma'am?
Well, again, with the Second Amendment, that's a right that we were given by the founders, and it was a right that is not to be abridged. And because of that, I think that we do need to have a situation where we can have open carry. Having said that, I don't agree that we need to be walking around carrying a gun, but I'm not going to interfere with somebody else's right to do that as long as they're a law-abiding citizen.
And you've got your own concealed weapon permit?
I have a permit, yes I do.
What your website says is a Pink Lady 38 revolver.
Yes, it is.
Understand. Okay, new subject. Some Democrats say there should be a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United because of the campaign finance issue and the explosion of third-party groups spending large amounts of money, and they don't have to say where they got that money. Your thoughts on campaign finance?
Well, for me, that doesn't seem to be a big problem. I am very low-key and very grassroots. So in terms of the big corporate funds, I'm certainly not seeing them come my way. I think that there can be some restrictions. Of course, it's a First Amendment issue, and so we have to you know, again, it's balancing that in terms of the right of people to give their money and to, you know, express who they want to have be in public office.
Okay.
So,
I understand. Let's talk about foreign policy. What lessons about fighting international terrorism and limitations on U.S. foreign policy do you think the nation has learned from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan?
what limitations?
Yeah. Are there any rules going forward, any lessons learned that America has learned in terms of when to involve, when to put boots on the ground in the future on international? Your thoughts on foreign policy?
Well, I'm the daughter of a World War II veteran, and he fought in northern Italy, and he fought against fascism. I'm the mother of a 16-year active duty Marine, and she did 2 tours in Iraq, and that can certainly shade my opinion. As a mother sending a daughter into war, that's a very difficult thing to do, and yet I supported that war. And the reason I supported it was because I don't think Bush lied. I think that on both sides of the aisle we believed that there were weapons there that could do significant damage to not only Saddam Hussein's people but to surrounding countries. And I think since then we have seen evidence that the weapons did in fact go to Syria. So having said that, we went to Afghanistan because we believed that Osama bin Laden was there, and we were going to find him. Having said that, we are now at over 10 years, 11, 12 years.
Yes.
And we have not had, I think, the resolve to win that war. I'm very concerned with leaving any troops there at this point. And the reason is because if we are not going to have the commitment to have them win, I think we are setting them up for failure. I think we are and failure in terms of the military means death. And for me, that's a very personal issue, whether it's my child or whether it is another mother's son or daughter. I take that very serious where we send our boots on the ground.
Are both your children still active duty, ma'am?
No.
Okay.
One is.
One is. My question is, are you concerned about the medical care your children as veterans would get in light of these recent news developments, ma'am?
I'm very concerned about it. What I would say is what we are looking at with the VA is a situation that has proven that the federal government cannot deliver health care adequately. And because of that, it's just another example of why we not only need to repeal Obamacare, but I think that we need to privatize the VA healthcare system, and that's what I would do. My opponent, Ron Kind, is in favor of his Blue Ribbon Commission, and I know that they just recently passed another bill, and what that's going to mean is throwing more money at the problem. But we have a systemic problem here. We have the inability to deliver adequate and quality health care to our veterans who bore the battle for us. And if we can't deliver that care to them in a way that gives them the quality of care that you and I are used to, then I think we need to look at a total revamping of that system. And I think we will save money by doing that. We have a bureaucracy here that, according to the reports, was giving bonuses for denying care to veterans. I think that's outrageous. I can't imagine these veterans coming back from the battlefield. A number of them have PTSD, and then they're supposed to have to start fighting for their health care. I think it's so deplorable, and I know that Wisconsinites are very much, they're always very concerned about our veterans, and I think that they would be in favor of looking at something like that. If we can sit down and look at some real solid plans for doing this. Yeah.
Do you have an opinion? Was it a fair exchange? 5 Taliban soldiers or terrorists for one held U.S. soldier, as the mother of someone who's sent your children off to the service?
No. No,
Okay.
it can't possibly be. For one thing, we do have a situation here where we still don't know what the whole situation is with Bergdahl. We have reports that he did walk away from his post. That's pretty serious as somebody who has had family members in the military, because when you have that situation, you're suddenly talking about somebody leaving their base, and you don't know what they are taking with them in terms of information. He walked off, and they didn't hear from him again. Mm-hmm. And so they don't know if he did that voluntarily. It appears that he did, and so there's the allegation that he is a deserter, and we will find out down the road if that is true. But having said that, it seems to me that a fair exchange is not to trade 5 of the worst terrorists that killed thousands of our people, or played a role in that, for a person where we don't know the status of. We believe that they were being held, or that he was being held. But when we're looking at that situation, we can't look at just him. We have to look at now what happens to the rest of our military. Now the word is out that they too should be captured. That makes me shudder as a mother, as a citizen of America. The thought of having more of our military personnel vulnerable, especially at a time when we're looking at leaving, about 10,000? I think that might be the number that they're talking about leaving. Yes. The less you have over there, especially in a non-combat role, the more vulnerable they become. So what are we going to do the next time when they're taken? And are they going to be treated as well as it looked like Bergdahl had been treated? Or are they going to be tortured? And so we're setting a very dangerous precedence here.
2 questions on domestic policy. Do you have a position on the Keystone Energy Pipeline, the oil pipeline, ma'am?
I think it should have been approved months ago. Our energy policies right now are such that they are harming our economy. We have higher gas prices needlessly. We have policies that favor green energy to the extent that they are harming the economy, they are harming jobs. We should be energy independent, and we can do that in a way that does not harm the environment. And I think people should at least consider taking another look at some of the programs that are being proposed by this administration, such as wind energy and such as solar energy, because there is an environmental cost to them that is not being discussed. The materials that it takes to make these products work is polluting places in other parts of the world. There's very much a toxic sludge that is associated with the rare earth minerals that are needed to manufacture the solar panels.
Do you think the federal government should act in the area of growing student debt, which now exceeds $1 trillion, college tuition and student loans, ma'am?
No, I don't think we can.
Okay. The federal government shouldn't have a role.
I don't think that I think, again, we have to relook at this policy because there's just a never-ending stream of debt here unless we get a handle on what is the underlying problem. And I would go right back to the health care costs. We have significant salaries when we are talking about university personnel. We have that. But if you look at the benefit packages, it's just stunning, the amount of money that we put into benefits. And that's going to continue to accelerate if we don't get a handle on our health insurance costs. In addition to that, I think we also have to look at who we are directing into colleges, because I think there's plenty of cases where we have manufacturing jobs which tend to be blue collar, but they can be very well paying jobs, and they're being left unfilled while we are channeling everybody into college when not everybody is well suited to college. And in fact, they can earn a very good living without going to college. And that too is something we really need to take a look at as a society.
Just two final questions. Is there any major campaign issue that you are developing or working on that I haven't asked you about? I want to give you a chance to. And anything we haven't covered, ma'am?
My platform is defending the Constitution and restoring our freedoms. And we have so many different issues here that we are looking at. I see our Constitution as a whole being shredded, and we really need to take a look at that. Our Constitution and the amendments were given to us by the Founding Fathers for very good reason, and that was because they believed that individual rights took precedence over the collective, and we need to take a hard look at where we are going. The Fourth Amendment has been implicated in so many different issues today. You look at the NSA spying, and I know that there has been some recent legislation to curtail that. But that's part of what America is. It stands for freedom. It stands for individualism and privacy rights. And before we just are willing to throw those all out because of the technological advances, I think we need to slow down and make sure that we are honoring our Constitution and that the judges that we elect and put into office, especially in Wisconsin here, are those that will honor our Constitution and also the Wisconsin Constitution.
And then finally, I want to give you a chance to highlight any differences between yourself and your primary opponent. Is it opponent or opponents?
There's two.
Okay,
There's two opponents right now.
Anything you want to highlight?
I would say of my two opponents, I am the most conservative. I am a pro-life candidate. I believe strongly in the right of conscience of individuals. I think it's very important, whatever your faith is, whatever your belief is, we need to make sure that people have the ability to express that. As long as they are not physically harming somebody, we have to make sure that people have that First Amendment right. And part of that is religious beliefs, but it's also the right to not have a religious belief. And that issue is very much, it's an issue that the Wisconsin Constitution in the Article 1, Section 18 makes very clear that the people that founded the state of Wisconsin wanted to make sure that your freedom of thought and your right to worship freely was not infringed.
Very good. Karen Mueller of Chippewa Falls is a Republican candidate in the 3rd Congressional District. The primary is August 12th. Ms. Mueller, thanks for coming to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.